Triangle congruence, angle side angle and angle angle side. So we have two more ways that we can prove that two triangles are congruent. So this first one, angle side angle. If two angles and the included side of one triangle are congruent and two angles of the included side of two angles and the included side of another triangle, then they are congruent. So if you look at this picture, we have our two angles and the included side. So if you think back to what it meant for being included, the two angles help create that side. So the side is in between those two angles. So this is included because it is in between those two sides. So if you can find two sets of congruent angles and the congruent side is also congruent, then the two triangles are congruent by angle side angle. Now the other one is angle angle side. It sounds the same, but it's not. The order does indeed matter. So it says if two angles in the non-included side of one triangle are congruent to two angles in the non-included side of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So if you look at this picture, the location of the extra side is different. So if you look at our two angles, this side would be the included side, and that's not the congruent part. It is the non-included. So one of the ways that you can know it's the non-included is that this side is only being basically touched or created by only one of the angles. So it's not in between two angles. So there's actually two different pictures on this one. It kind of just depends on which non-included. They are essentially reflections of each other. This is also a non-included side. So the order matters on the angle side angle, so be very careful. If you're going to say angle side angle, this one, then the side you have is included. The side's in between the two angles. And if you look how it's written, the S for side is literally in between the two angle A's. So that's almost giving you a picture of what it should be. The side is in between the two angles. Whereas on angle angle side, it's not between the two angles, it's to one side of it. So that's the non-included. So let's see if we can figure out if a couple of these are congruent by angle side angle or angle angle side. So if we look at these two triangles for number one, we have the two right angles, those are congruent. And we have one side here, but we don't have any other information. So we don't even have enough information for angle side angle because we're missing an extra angle. We couldn't even do side angle side because we're missing another side. So this one is going to be a no because there's missing information. Okay, let's look at number two. So we have these are congruent angles. We have these are congruent angles because of the markings, and they share a common side. So since they share this side in the middle, we can say that we do have two angles and a side. Now let's figure out which one this is. If I were just to look at one of these triangles, here's the angle, the two angles, and the side is in between. Let's see if it works with the other one. I have my two angles and the side in between. So this is an angle, side, angle. Oh, I wrote it backwards. Angle, side, angle. Okay, for problem number three, we have these angles here are congruent by the picture. We have these sides are congruent also by the picture. And if you think about our angle relationships, if you have two crossing lines, then the vertical angles are also equivalent. So we can say that they are going to be congruent. We have two angles and a side. And if you look at where the side is located, it's not between the two angles. It's a non-included, so this is an angle, angle, side. Okay, number four. So again, we have vertical angles. Don't forget about vertical angles. Those are going to come in handy. We have sides, and we have an angle. Now we have two angles and a side for those two triangles. Is the side included? No, it is not. So this is an angle, angle, side because the two angles are not on either ends of the side. Okay, number 5. We have congruent sides. We have vertical angles. We also have nothing else because we do not know any other information. Now, if we knew that the two congruent sides were parallel, that could mean something, but we don't actually know if they're parallel or not. So this one actually does not have enough information. Okay, number 6. We have these congruent sides. We have these congruent angles. We don't know anything else. We are missing an extra piece of information. So this one is also a no. Okay, number 7. We have the congruent sides. We have these congruent angles, and we also have these congruent angles. So if you look at where the sides are, they are included, so it's got to be angle, side, angle. This has to be in the middle of the two angles. Okay, 2 more. We have these congruent sides. Any side is congruent to itself. We don't have any information on angles. We don't know if the two ones that I highlighted in purple are parallel. If we did, we could have some alternate interior, but we do not. So we cannot prove anything else because we don't have any angles. So this is going to be a no. And lastly, we have these congruent sides. We have these congruent angles, and again, vertical angles. So if you look at where that side is located, we do not have an angle congruence on each end. So this is going to be an angle, angle, side. Okay, there are going to be some problems where you need to solve some equations based on what you have just discovered in terms of angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle. Write your equations, and good luck.